Exactly 1 year ago today, Trump stood in the Rose Garden and declared it Liberation Day. He called it one of the most important moments in American history. He said it would fix the trade deficit, bring jobs back, and make the country rich again. And then he signed an executive order that tariffed basically the entire planet. What happened next is one of the wildest economic stories you will ever hear. Because in 12 months, this went from the biggest tariff shock in a century to getting struck down by the Supreme Court to being replaced overnight with an entirely new tariff system while Trump was literally on a plane to China. And in the middle of all that chaos, the countries that were supposed to get destroyed somehow ended up fine, while the ones that looked safe got hit in ways nobody saw coming. So today, 1 year later, we're ranking the major countries Trump tariffed, from the ones getting obliterated to the ones that are quietly winning this whole thing. And I promise you, the number one winner is going to surprise you. Let's go back to April 2nd, 2025. Trump signed what he called reciprocal tariffs, a 10% baseline on imports from basically every country on Earth, with much higher rates for major trading partners. Cambodia got 49%, Laos 48%, Vietnam 46%, and China got hit hardest of all. Within a week, after Beijing retaliated and Trump escalated again, Chinese goods were facing 145% tariffs. Think about that. You make a product in China worth $100, ship it to America, and the importer owes $145 in taxes before making a cent. The math just stops working. Orders were canceled overnight, the stock market crashed, bonds sold off, economists started saying the word recession. And then Trump blinked. Not on China, but on almost everyone else. 6 days after Liberation Day, he paused the higher country-specific tariffs for 90 days. Everything went back to 10% while negotiations continued. The S&P 500 had its best day since 2008, but the damage was already done for some countries. And over the next 12 months, the list of winners and losers got completely reshuffled. Let's start at the bottom. Cambodia might genuinely be the most wrecked country in this entire story. And the reason is almost darkly funny. When the Commerce Department investigated solar panel imports, Cambodian producers refused to cooperate. That was the mistake, because the penalty for non-cooperation was a tariff rate so extreme, it was 3,521%. I'm not joking. Cambodia's solar industry didn't get tariffed, it got vaporized. Yes, the Supreme Court later struck down the legal basis for the most extreme Liberation Day tariffs, which we will get to. But the solar case still has a path to come back under different trade law. Cambodia is not breathing easy. Right above Cambodia, you have Germany. And this one hurts, because Germany did not make some absurd unforced error. It just got caught in the middle of a strategy that backfired on its core industry. German automakers were already under pressure before Liberation Day. High energy costs after the fallout from Russia and Ukraine. A brutal electric vehicle transition. Weak growth across Europe. Then came a 25% tariff on imported cars. EU car exports to the United States fell 17% in 2025. And while German cars were being squeezed out of America, Chinese electric vehicles flooded into Europe. For the first time ever, Germany imported more cars from China than it exported there. Germany, the country that built its identity around engineering and the automobile, got outflanked by its biggest competitor. That is brutal. The EU eventually negotiated a framework deal at 15%, along with hundreds of billions in investment commitments into American energy and defense. But you cannot just undo a year of lost sales. Japan and South Korea are fascinating. They got hit hard on Liberation Day, and instead of panicking, they negotiated quietly, strategically. Japan pledged $550 billion in US investment. South Korea pledged $350 billion. In return, both got their tariff rates cut to 15%. Whether those investments fully materialize is another question. But as a diplomatic move, it worked. Vietnam did something similar, but with a catch. It ended up at 20% plus a brutal 40% surcharge on goods transshipped through Vietnam from China. The US basically said they know what Vietnam has been doing and they are closing that loophole. Vietnamese exports to the US still grew fast over the year, but here's the problem. The US trade deficit with Vietnam actually widened, which is the exact opposite of what all these tariffs were supposed to fix. And that takes us to the big question. What was the goal of all this? The stated purpose was to reduce the American trade deficit, bring manufacturing back, and fix the imbalance. But after a full year, the numbers were almost unchanged. The US trade deficit for 2025 was basically the same as it had been the year before. Imports from China fell sharply, yes, but the gap just moved to Vietnam, to Taiwan, to Mexico. US manufacturing output barely grew. So after the most aggressive tariff campaign in a century, the main thing it was supposed to fix barely moved. And then the entire strategy took an even crazier turn. Because while all of this was unfolding, there was a legal case moving through the courts that was about to blow the whole thing up. On February 20th, 2026, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that Trump's IEEPA tariffs, the legal authority behind most of the Liberation Day tariffs, were illegal. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote that the law contained no reference to tariffs or duties, and that the words Trump's team relied on simply could not carry that weight. That meant the government had collected billions from hundreds of thousands of businesses under a tariff regime the court said was unconstitutional. Trump was furious. He called the ruling lawless. He attacked the justices publicly. And then, within hours, he signed a brand new executive order imposing a 10% global tariff under a different law, Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. That law has a hard ceiling of 15% and an expiration clock built in. So overnight, America went from an ultra-aggressive tariff regime to a much more limited one. And this is where the rankings flip completely. Because countries like Japan and Taiwan had made enormous investment promises to secure favorable IEEPA tariff deals, and then those deals were basically wiped away by the court. Suddenly they were paying the same 10% baseline as countries that had pledged nothing. That uncertainty is real. Now let us talk about Mexico, because Mexico might be the most quietly dominant country in this entire story. You would think Mexico would be a mess. It shares a border with the United States. There were constant tariff threats, fentanyl-related pressure, and fights over immigration. But here's the thing. Mexico is the largest trading partner of the United States, and it sits inside the USMCA trade agreement with the United States and Canada. That means Mexican goods that comply with the agreement moved with dramatically lower tariff exposure than much of the rest of the world. While global tariff chaos exploded, Mexico quietly protected its position. The investment data backs it up. Foreign direct investment into Mexico hit record levels. Companies pulling manufacturing out of China need somewhere close to the American market, and Mexico is the obvious answer. Nearshoring stopped being a theory. It became real. Factories surged. US and Canadian firms poured money in. This is not some temporary blip. It looks like a structural shift. But the country that might actually be the biggest winner of this saga? China. I know. Wait, because yes, China got hit hardest at the beginning. Yes, its exports to the United States took a major hit. But China also spent that year doing something smart, pivoting, deepening trade ties across Asia, looking for alternative markets, adjusting faster than people expected. And then the Supreme Court ruling came down, and suddenly the crushing tariff pressure that was supposed to force China into a corner evaporated. Its burden went from catastrophic to manageable almost overnight. And here's the kicker. Trump is in Beijing right now, 1 year after Liberation Day, sitting across from Xi Jinping and negotiating from a weaker position than the one he started with. The man who declared economic war on China is now meeting China with fewer weapons than he had a year ago. So let us do the final ranking. Most screwed. Cambodia for the absurd solar tariff exposure, Germany and the European Union auto sector squeezed from both sides, and the countries that made giant investment promises for tariff deals that later got blown up by the court. In the middle, Vietnam and Taiwan, still growing, but in fragile positions. And secretly winning? Mexico, protected by USMCA and flooded with nearshoring investment. And China, which absorbed a year of pain, pivoted fast, and then watched the Supreme Court handed a geopolitical opening right before the summit. And the trade deficit that started all this, basically still where it was before. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.